All right. What is going on, everybody? What's happening? My name is Ian Robinson. I am the ZBrush trainer and also training manager here at Maxon, and we're here to make learning ZBrush a lot of fun. It's going to be exciting, and it's making sure my camera is switched the way I need it to. Boom, a little demystify. There we go. Boom. How's everyone doing? So real quick, real fast, in a hurry, just want to make a few announcements, and then we'll get to some sculpting today because I'm actually prepping for IBC. And if you're going to be at in Amsterdam next week, then come by, say hi in person as we go through IBC, which is an amazing broadcasting event held in Amsterdam. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Real quick, we have the ZBrush Summit 2023. That is coming really, really soon, actually at the end of this month. So September 28th all the way through the 1st of October. So we're going to have a lot of fun stuff with that. So we want to go check that out. And then, of course, too, if you're going to participate in the Sculpt Off, what's up, Chase? How you doing, buddy? If you're going to participate in the Sculpt Off, first off, it's online, and definitely register all the rules and stuff. Myself, Paul Gabriel, Louis Tucci, we've been going through some of the rules the last couple weeks, and also too a little couple tips and tricks. So if you are prepping for the Sculpt Off, you can also ask your questions here as I'm sculpting and working on my project for IBC. And then presentations. Just, you know, we kind of also went over this, but again, never hurts to go through. We're going to do, again, September 28th, we'll have the Sculpt Off. And then Friday, September 30th, we're going to have some really big, hard-hitting starting points with Michael DeFeo, and also, too, we're going to have Xander Smith, and we're going to have a few other things, Gentle Giant Studios, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to have a lot of that. And Street Fighter's going to be there, which is going to be really amazing. We have Capcom come in and present. And then on Saturday, we have September 31st, which we're going to be starting off with Steve Wang, and that's going to be super amazing, so you're not going to want to miss that, as well as Furio Tedeschi, hopefully I said that right. We're going to come in with character design, and then, of course, ZBrush to Supersized Bronze, Batman, and Wonder Woman over with the AFA Foundry Studio. So that's going to be super amazing. And then we also are going to end it with Diablo that day. I believe it's ended. No, sorry. Then we end it with Overwatch and Final Fantasy. And then, so that's already that's 2 days of presentations. That's so much right there. So if you're going to be here, definitely check this out. And then we'll end the day with October 1st, which we're going to have a fun, some design workflow with Ming Xing. She's also super amazing Oscar award-winning artist who did a lot of stuff that you're going to want to check out, as well as Henry Shavanka, and again, creating characters and stuff like that with so there's just with Gorilla. So there's so much going on. And then we have Avatar, and then, of course, the ZBrush team rounds it off with announcing maybe some cool stuff, and also, too, with the ZBrush Sculpt Off winners. So there's a big stuff happening on the summit. I just dumped all that information on you, but also, too, workshops are available. If you want, and you're in person, and you want to go through and actually do workshops, you absolutely 100% can. So, and then these are first come, first serve, so definitely check that out. If you're here in person, that'd be amazing. You have guys like Pablo Munoz and Michael Pavlovich and Henry Shavanka, and then Michael DeFeo, Joseph Drust, Michael Pavlovich, Furio, Michael DeFeo, Anna Carolina, and Patrick Foley. So we have a lot of great artists to come through. So that's all that dumped on you real quick, fast, in a hurry, but that's what's happening this year at the ZBrush Summit. Now that all being said, let's get to some sculpting. So I am prepping for a presentation for IBC, like I mentioned, and I thought it'd be cool to cover 3D print this time. So what's up, Steamworks? How you doing? So I thought it'd be cool to cover some 3D print, some ZBrush to 3D print workflows that would be happening instead of like your typical like character rig or pose or T-pose, whatnot. So I'm creating a project for Collectible, and this is what we're going to get done. And I'm getting really, really excited about this one because it's more leaning towards the Jurassic Park type thing, but it's kind of my take on the Velociraptor from that era. So adding a little bit of things. I'm not trying to match anything. I just like the creature and their design. So this is something that I'm kind of just leaning in a little bit. So we're almost done with that. So we're going to do some more texturing, and then we're going to get into some print prep. So please feel free to ask your questions, of course, especially if you're new to 3D printing or just ZBrush in general. Getting close, exciting. I know. Yeah, I'm super excited for the summit. I'm so excited. Can't wait. Now let's do this. It's a little quiet for my taste. I can't work without music. I love music. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn some music on. Let me just sign into my pretzel rocks. That's usually what I rock. And then let's get some tunes happening. And you should be able to hear them. You might. There we go. Turn that one off for a second. Okay, perfect. All right, let's get into it. Just turn that down a little bit. Perfect. All right, so let's go through. And what I'm doing right now is I'm texturing this creature. So let's actually get a material that might showcase this a little bit better, something a little bit darker. Yeah, maybe not too, that's a little too dark. Let's actually maybe do matte cap gray. There we go. And what I also will do is I come up here to render, occlusion, and I turn this up just a little bit. It shows that depth just a little bit more. And what I'm doing is I'm using layers to actually push through a lot of this stuff. So, and I'm using alphas to do the majority of the texture. So right now you can see in my layer system, I have like skin folds, finger scales, 1 and 2. I duplicated that, have different changes to the head. So I'm using the layer system to actually help me build this up a little bit. And I'm gonna go ahead and just hit new to this, and if I scroll down you can actually see this guy right here. Actually, let's stop that. Let's just delete it. What was this one? Okay, and this one was leg. Okay, I need to rename this guy right here. So this one was leg and arm texture, so let's go through a name called leg arm texture. Perfect. Can I ask a question about Bend Deformer? Did you encounter when you edit a point, the deformer randomly resets itself? I have not done that, but let me pull it up and we can go over Bend Deformers real quick. So let's actually take this little guy right over here, and what I'm going to do is actually just stamp that over, so then I can actually move on. And let's see, let's come down here to the bottom of the base, or even just up here. Let's hit solo mode, and let's just insert a random object. It doesn't even matter at this point. Perfect. Okay, so you can see here we got this. All right, so let's see. So I've not encountered what you were talking about, but let's see. Use curve deformer, like the bend curve deformer. Yeah, bend curve. Perfect. So you're discussing maybe having it snap back to its original point, which I have not done. Unless you turn, nope, not even, no. Switch back and forth, hitting W. So no, but maybe, let me see something real quick. Let's come on here real quick. So of course, for those of you who don't know the bend curve, or any curve deformer, usually you hit this little gizmo, you hit the cog, and then from there you pick which one you want. We pick bend curve, and then you have these cones, and these cones always tell you what this one does. Like this one is the curve resolution, and then this one is the smoothness, and then of course this one's the axis. Which axes are you on? So you can pick which one, you can choose. But no, I haven't actually had it snap back. So, and even if you were to do a duplicate where you Control Shift D and duplicate that, you can see here that if I move this over to the side and then just come up here to version 8, you can see here that both of my tools are actually here, and they both keep the actual curve itself. So I hit W again, snap through. So that's one way that you can work with that as well. But I have not seen the issue. What you could do is you could definitely put in a support ticket. And that's super helpful, and I do want to remind that you guys have the ability, because you paid for software, you absolutely can go to the support line and drop it. And if you have video of it happening, then that's always helpful. But no, I haven't established that. Also, hi, how you doing? I've watched a lot of South Park and was inspired. Now I'm making my own stop motion film. Nice, dude, that's awesome. Yep, not a problem, not a problem. Okay, let's go back to this version 1 right here. And again, we're just focusing on texturing the skin here, and I'm using the layer system for that. What is the magnifying app you use? Oh, you mean this guy right here? This actually is, this is actually built within ZBrush. So if you just hit Shift and then M as in Mary, that turns it on and off. And then what you can do is you actually can modify this. So you come up here to preferences, and then there's an actual magnifying glass. And this is the Shift M that turns it on. And then you have the zoom function, so you can have it zoom really in. It's usually set to like 1, I think. I think it's set to 1. So 1.5 to 2.0. I usually have it at 2 for streams. And then as well as the radius, you can have a nice big fat one, which actually I usually do that. And then the shadows and the frame, even the fade itself, you can have this become tack sharp or really soft. So usually I have this set to like tack sharp. And then of course too, if it creates any type of shadowing, usually 0.5, it's not really that crazy. And then you just come up to config, and then you just go ahead and you just store that config. And now anytime you hit Shift M, that magnifying glass will go on and off. Yeah, it's a really helpful tool, especially when you're trying to, teach something. So I use it a lot because I teach all the time, which is awesome. Okay, so let's go back over to my layer system. Let's scrub on down, and I'm going to create a new layer. So when you're using the layer system, it's important to know that the layers, like one layer will affect another over time. So like, for example, the details that I have here, the skin folds that I have, if I end up turning this off, then some of these skin folds go away, but that also changes the effect of how I'm utilizing. So I usually work in sections. I don't do everything on one layer. I usually work in sections. So for example, the leg texture and the arm texture. Also too, this helps me too. If I put something too strong, I could dial this back a little bit. I'm not stuck with that super harsh texture. So you could definitely come through. Usually I don't worry about blending until I'm at a point where I'm satisfied with the overall look. So something like this, come back here. And I'm actually using default skin textures for this. I'm actually coming up here to the Lightbox, Alpha, and then I'm utilizing the majority of these textures here because they have leathery skin, and that's the look I'm going for. But do I need a story? If you don't mind, do you have any ideas? Story is key for anything. So, but here's the thing. If you're inspired to learn stop motion, then what I would recommend that you do is just focus on the technique first. I think a lot of artists will do this. I myself am super guilty of biting off more than I can chew. When you're trying to learn something, I feel like it's super beneficial for you to just, first off, what are you trying to learn? You're trying to learn how to do stop motion, right? Which I actually have no idea how to even approach that. I have an idea of how it works, because I actually wanted to be an animator when I was in high school. But all that being said, I don't know exactly how it works. So what I would recommend is you actually just learn the technique first. Don't worry about story so much. Just get down what you need to do. Like, how many frames do you actually need to take, which determines your frame rate, right? If you're taking 5 frames, for every movement, but you're working at 30 frames a second, then those are things you have to do, right? You have to take those 30 frames, divide it by 5, and then that gives you how many takes you need to have within that 30 seconds, or in that 30 frame second window, right? That's about all I know. But anyway, I would say learn the technique first. And then once you're comfortable with the technique, and that doesn't mean you have to be super advanced. That just means learn the technique first, get an idea of how it works, and then start your storyboarding process. And I think then you'll find out that you'll be able to create a little bit more freely in your portfolio piece for storytelling than you would if you're trying to tell a story and you're trying to learn. Because here's the thing, and this is from my experience only, and again, it's just kind of my advice. The thing that I used to do is that I would try to create this most epic piece without ever knowing how to actually approach it. So I would do the rabbit hole thing where I would be like, okay, I'll do enough, and then I get stuck, and then I'd spend the next 6 hours trying to figure out why I don't know a certain thing. And then that would get really frustrating, like extremely frustrating. And it would just get to the point where I'm like, I would never get anything done. My projects would never get done. Nothing would get done because I'm not actually achieving anything. I'm actually giving myself more work. So in my opinion, the best thing to do, learn the technique first, get comfortable with the tools and the skill set you need. And then once you're comfortable, then focus on storytelling. And I will tell you this, I built my career with fan art, and I'm not kidding. Yes, I done original pieces based on concepts, based on companies that hired me to make a certain concept, which is usually what a sculptor will do. But if you're just trying to learn, then again, get the tools down and then lean into some fan art. You're into South Park right now. So if you're into South Park, then I would take some of those characters and just imagine what those characters are in your kind of fan art world. And then just that way you're grounded with a story that you know is consistent. And then you can apply those tools to a story you already know and love. And that's also going to increase your inspiration. And that inspiration is going to help drive you, which then in turn gives you the ability to stay motivated and stay in the project. And then once you're really comfortable and you can like pump out a stop motion film that looks cool, then start going into like story development, because story development in especially in character design, you know, just in general, that's a different skill set. So you're going to be learning multiple skills, and I think it's important to call that out. So storytelling is a skill all on its own. You know, being able to do the thing that to use the tools that you need to get the job done, that's also a skill. And reality is learning is a skill. So how you approach it is going to really help you out. So I would say do that. And hopefully that's helpful. I'm going to hit save. Hey, tomato. Yeah, Earth, you say, I think it's the opposite advice that 2D artists give. They usually say story comes first and then you learn with the technique. I think it depends on the person too. I don't think there's a wrong way to approach anything. It's what is the right approach for you. And I think that is something that I don't think a lot of artists talk about, but I do, because it's what's worked for me so far. Not to say that artists don't talk about it, because I've spoken to a lot of artists who do. It's just more of the fact, like, what is comfortable for you and what it is that you're trying to achieve. I'm somebody who gets lost in the details. And so if I'm sitting here trying to, like, factor in how something should look or feel, I'm going to get caught up in that, and then it's going to drive me nuts ultimately. So, but yeah, I mean, again, it is also what works for you, but you can't tell us, like, let's take that example that you had mentioned, where it's like, you know, usually they say story comes first and then you learn the technique. If you're a writer, then lean into that aspect as well. You know what I mean? Like, if you are a writer and you can write a story, then cool. I am not. I actually struggle with storytelling. So I usually learned a lot of my storytelling elements through looking at how other stories that I come to love actually get told, and then leaning into that. And then now when I make statues and stuff like that, I try to incorporate story once I have an idea of what I'm going to be doing. But at the end of the day, if whatever approach in your journey you're trying to take, it's getting to an end result. That's the goal. And however you choose to learn that, that's going to be up to you and your skill set. And if you understand how you learn, then that's fantastic. And that's always I say lean into strengths over anything else. Did I get these alphas on Google? No, actually, I got these alphas right up here, ships with ZBrush. If you go to the lightbox by hitting that comma key, and then you go to alpha, the alphas I'm currently using are actually in here. And I'm just using the layer system to get the bulk of this done. And then, like, I just stopped recording that. I'm going to rename this and call this tail. I work in chunks when I do this. Now, I did use some other alphas at home. I actually used these alphas from MLW Creative. He actually has some really cool stuff on his ArtStation that you can buy the commercial license for and use that, which his stuff's super affordable. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's even a little too strong in some areas, so I'm going to end up toning some of this down. But I think it looks really cool. I do want to push the details just a little bit more. So like here, I'm gonna hit record. It keeps turning on my color. I don't want that, turn my color off. And then I wanna just come over here. Go back to my layer system. And then like, and here's the thing too, like I'm using these and kind of trying, when I'm blending them, I'm like drawing this out. I know I'm getting overlap, but the thing is that like that overlap, I'm able to connect it because it's a pretty seamless texture. So yeah, it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. And so now I want to do the belly next. So I'm going to stop the recording, and then we actually have some scaly skin, some leathery skin. So I actually might, let's see what this looks like. So I'm just going to double tap that. It gives me that alpha. And then we're going to open up a new one. And then I'm just going to isolate just this belly. So I'm going to hit solo mode for this. And I'm just selecting, because I have polygroups turned on. And then I want to get to some 3D print stuff. I want to start prepping. I don't know if this is going to blend well. I might just do this texture as a whole overall. But let's see. Let's dial this down just a bit. And let's see if this even makes any sense. This may not make sense. Actually, that might look pretty good. I'm just going to add a little bit of variety to this. I am going to come through and do... I don't like that. I do this where like I'll try something new and then I won't like it. So then let's go back to, not that one, leather skin. Yeah, I think we're just going to keep the same texture. I was looking at Jurassic Park 1, which is where I got my inspiration for this. And this texture is pretty much all over the first Velociraptors, which is, so this is kind of a nod to my childhood a little bit. So this is why I'm kind of just going it in this direction. Let's just see how this works out. Let's mask that all off. Let's drop subdivisions down, blur it just a little bit, and then kick those subdivisions back up to the top, which will turn my layer back on and give me a nice mask. Yes, yeah, this model has multiple subdivisions. It will be DynaMesh soon. Yeah, I always felt like that with that advice, they are looking down on technical artists. Yeah, for sure. I totally get that. You've designed a dude with a silly little banjo. I think we're going to start lurking and working on it more. Absolutely. Go in there. Go have fun. Like, you know what I mean? Like, knock it off. Like, get in there and work. Like, that's the thing. These streams are, like, I love doing these streams, but I love working in the background while other artists are working. Makes me feel like we're collaborating, or at least just, like, working on a project. It's super fun. Hey, thanks, Geisel. Let's see here. What's up, Carbon 44444? What's up, buddy? To see, how can I make a brush not get affected by other subtools? Only the one I'm working on, though. Wait, how can I make a brush not get affected by other subtools? Like when I smooth a subtool that intersects with another, it gets all messed up. Oh, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Blood Raptor. Okay. This actually happened to me on this. So the technique I just did where I masked something off. So let me turn on polygroups and let me turn the lines off for a second. So this is my model with, it has subdivisions, but I have all these sections done with polygroups. So there's a few approaches you could take to make sure that you're not affecting one side of a model with another. First and foremost is just masking it off by selecting the different polygroups like this, and then masking that section off, and then coming through. And now when I'm working, especially like if I was going to draw details out here, it's not going to hit this side of the arm, right? So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it, and I'm going to show you this on a plane. So I'm going to insert a plane, and real fast I'm going to come here and just turn off. Okay, there's no layers on that. Perfect. Great. Let's actually drop this down all the way to the bottom. Okay. I'm going to show you this on a plane. Now, let's add some subdivisions just so we can capture some fun detail. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just delete lower, and then I'm going to go to properties, and then I'm going to do double. And the reason why is because it's single-sided geometry, and I want to see the back. Okay. So got both sides. Now, when I come through here, and let's just do the scale texture. So let's just drag this out and I see this. Okay, right now, if I flip to the back side, you can see here that it's actually pushing that detail through the back. Even though it's single-sided, it is pushing all that in, and you're gonna get that. Actually, I don't know if this is a good example. Let's give it some thickness. Let me actually give it some thickness so we can really, really see the difference. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute. So let's do this. Let's drop this back down. My brain is like going, do this, do that, do that. Do all the things. Okay, let's give it just a little bit of thickness. So let's come here. Let's come to QMesh, polygroup that, and just a little bit of thickness right there. Nothing too crazy. Okay, now we'll divide this up and delete lower. Okay, great. So now same thing. So if I come back here, let's do a little bit more strength, and then I'm going to drag this out and push this in. You'll see here it's starting to push through the backside, and you can affect a model this way really, really well. But if I wanted to protect this, backface mask on. Oh, backface mask is on. So if I turn that off, you can see here it's crunching through that aspect. It's really pushing. Now if I come through here and say backface mask turn on, and I come and push that through, notice it's not really hitting. I mean, it's coming through a little bit because this is really, really thin, but it's only pushing one side. So you're affecting two different aspects of it, which is why I have it on, because when I'm on this model right here, backface mask turned off would really affect these other components. So if I turn this back off and I start pushing through, at some point it's going to be doing this, right? If I come back here and say backface mask turned on and I drag this out, as I get it as bigger, 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 it's actually only working on the one side. It's protecting. It's not trying to push or project on the other side. Let me show you that again. So again, go up here to brush, come over here, turn backface mask. So it's off right now, and you can see it's now affecting all of that in that section. But if I Control Z, turn it back on, and I start dragging this out, it's now protecting and it's not pushing on that other detail. So that's another way you can do it. So you can either mask something or you can use backface mask turned on. There is one other aspect that you can do, and this is a little bit more for like hearts. This is a little bit more for like when you're close to edges. So if I come here and I say like, let's just get a cube, say something like this, and then I'm gonna go to geometry, ZRemesher, and then I'm just gonna ZRemesh this at 20 with detect edges, just to give me some density real quick. There we go. And if I subdivide a few times, just to give me some resolution. Now here's the thing. So even with backface mask turned on, you can see here it's actually pushing that through. Let's turn this off just for a second. So you can see with some edges, like not all brushes will come through, but you can control the depth too. Let's actually get something that would push through. Like even just masking. Masking right now, it's actually bleeding on over. So if I were to come through and actually affect the depth, and I would actually turn on depth and maybe push this to be a little bit more flatter and then increase that depth down just a little bit more. Let's actually turn this, let's get this off like that. So I can help me. Oh, I need to turn on what we got here. Give me 1 second. I have layers turned on. I need to have a recording mode happen. Come on. It is giving me a little TLC. Let's divide again. Oh, of course. 1 second. Boom, boom, boom. Divide, hit that there. I need to turn the layer off on the other subtool. Hold on 1 second. I think I'm recording on that side. I am recording on that side. So if you noticed like nothing was happening, I was recording, I needed to stop recording on that side, which should help me. There we go. That should help me out. Okay, let's do this one more time. Let's turn this alpha off. So let's come here, turn that alpha off. Let's just reset this. If you're ever stuck and you break a brush, just hit reset all. That's going to help you reset all your brushes. It will remove brushes that weren't naturally shipped with ZBrush. So if you brush some brushes go away, don't worry about it. Okay. So you can see here, I'm like, may not want to be hitting this other side, right? I may, if I'm coming over, this is a really sharp edge. This actually, I can be a little bit more free with it. You could come down here to depth. Again, turn on depth and then even crush this down a little bit. And as I get closer to that edge, it won't bleed over as much. That doesn't mean it won't bleed over. Eventually it will, but it'll be less intrusive on that. So if you are up against a subtool that is going to capture it a little bit and you can't mask it off, then I would play with this depth and just maybe reduce this down. And then again, as you're pushing harder, it's not going to clip as much. Now notice I'm pushing a little bit harder, and it is trying to actually get that detail on even the front side, because once you reduce the initial embed, like once you go below zero is surface level. That's how that works, right? But then when I come here, let's just dock that. Once I kick under a bed, now I'm actually working just slightly under that surface, which is why it would help protect this edge a little bit more. So you don't need to go nuts, because I went like -20 and now like almost nothing is happening. So that is a little bit more of an advanced tweak to your brush, but those are ways that you can go about doing it to protect that surface as much as possible. So once you have something that you like, of course you can save this brush out. So I'm able to work really closely on these edges and just get some of this here, but it's not pushing over to the other side. And this could work on the Raptor arm itself. So if I come back to my Raptor arm and I need to work on this side right here, and I come back in, now I have to turn on the layer. So I'm just gonna hit record. That's gonna bring back some color that I just don't need. That's fine. Now as I'm working here, it's not going to affect this side as much because it's really just working on that surface. So those are other ways that you can go about doing it. Trying to think. The other element too, a little bit more advanced, so really just opening this question up. The back face mask, you do have an actual, like, how much does that want to affect? 100% being really, really strong, and it's really just going to help protect that backside. But you also, if you start sliding this down, you could start blending that a little bit too. So that is another way. And then of course, topological. Topological could be helpful if you need to move elements without affecting another. So with the topological, let's say I need to actually move this green arm closer to this purple body, right? Just calling out the polygroups. If I have topological turned off, I come through, I'm now affecting everything in that area, right? But if I turn topological on, now I do have some pretty high subdivision, so I'm going to turn this down. As I'm coming through, it's not affecting that body as much as it was when it was turned off. When it's turned off, it's really affecting it. When it's turned on, it's only affecting it a little bit. And I can actually drop this range down to, let's say, something like 2. And now look at that. That range in itself, now it's not affecting that body at all. It's only affecting the mesh that I grabbed. And that in itself is going to be super helpful because, again, now you're only affecting that arm. So you could use topological on top of, utilizing back face mask and then make an adjustment and have a crazy brush that really protects the edges. So those are the ways that I would go about approaching. Each and every one of these ways I just mentioned is, of course, going to be circumstantial to the situation at hand. So whatever situation you're occurring, you just may want to make a slight adjustment between one or the other, but I would say just even turning on 1 or 2 of these things will help you get far. What's up, Anthony? How you doing? Yep. Is there a way to export the layer animation as FBX? With like bones and stuff like that. Amir. So, okay, with animations, with the layer system, we have an import MDD animation file. FBX, I don't think will do that with bones and stuff like that because there's no real animation breakdown as far as I'm aware of. I want to say that the timeline has the ability to retain certain, but I have not played too much with the timeline on that. So I want to say no, not really, not with like FBX. We do, like I said, you can import layer systems and like blend shapes and stuff using the MDD files. So you can import that, you can bring that in, you can adjust. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of animation tools to really do that at this moment. At least not that I'm aware of. So you want to export this out. So if you hit record, now if you hit record deformation animation, like all of this, I want to record this. If I click this, then it will start that recording process. And you can get more information on that. And once I turned it off, it now tried to export that out. But again, this would be, it's just MDD files is how I'm aware that you can bring that in. I don't think there's another element to that. Yeah, Topological moves on every brush. Every brush that you can turn that on. Maybe not curved brushes. Well, it says you can turn it on with curved brushes. I wouldn't see the benefit of a curved brush, but you could. Here's my silhouette. Absolutely, absolutely. MB, does that other view update in real time? Oh, you mean the stamp right here? This guy, no, that won't update in real time. That's just me utilizing. There we go. That's just me utilizing the stamp feature to showcase something, so that when people are looking at the thumbnail for the first time, maybe they don't know what the stream is. They'll see the character. So I do that from time to time. So I'll do this. I'll come here. I'll say delete and stuff like that. Like, so I'll have this stamped where I like it. I want the character to be the view part. Hit Shift S. That stamps it, and then now I can work independently on the body, and then that stays there. But no, it doesn't update in real time. I wish it did. That would be really dope. That'd be really, really cool. Great questions, guy. You're a little bit scared to mess with your paper puppets because I don't want to rip them. Oh, that's why don't be scared. You are gonna rip them. You will. I promise you. You will destroy the things that you're working on, but then you get to update it. But don't be scared about that. It's okay. It's okay that happens. And as somebody who poses, you know, my characters and stuff like that, believe you me, it's going to happen. Okay, let me reset my brushes because I tweaked a bunch of them. Let's come in and let's turn my leathery skin back on. There we go. I need this to be a negative cut. I need this to be a drag. And now we're going to come through. And again, so here, this is why I work with polygroups too, by the way, is because I want to be able to actually control a lot of this stuff. Here, one second. Do I have this set to YouTube safe? I do. Okay, cool. Interesting. All right. Like I'm listening to a song's playing. I'm like, do I have YouTube safe turned on? Okay, so this is why I work in polygroups as well, for that very question we were handling, where we're talking about like not wanting to affect another side of the mesh. So these are little things that I typically will lean into a lot. That skin's not usually as rough, so maybe I'll reduce this down just a little bit and still have it cracked a little bit, but not as much. Let's actually back this up. That's the other aspect too, is when you're doing any type of texturing, you want to be aware of like what's soft tissue or what's hard tissue, like what would bend. Luckily the dinosaurs in the first Jurassic Park are, I don't want to say generic, it's just they didn't have any personality. It seems in the later Jurassic Parks that they started trying to implement a little bit more story into the creatures, like Blue, for example, from the Jurassic World, I think. So I always thought that was kind of cool, because then you just get a little bit more into it, and then you recognize, quote, that dinosaur, right? So here, see, look at this. I didn't actually protect this backside when I was putting those alphas on there. Okay. So just things to kind of remember. But now I'm doing back face mask for sure, which is nice. And sometimes you don't always need to do back face mask, but if it's there and you can use it, do it. I hate posing models and completely destroy them. Poor models. Oh my goodness. Okay, I should have taken a photo of it, but I'm taking a traditional sculpting class because if you guys don't know, I'm mostly digital. Like that's how I learned how to do. That's how I learned how to sculpt. Although I watched traditional videos and learning because I wanted to understand sculpture. See, these are a little rough. Let's actually move this down to maybe like smooth valleys. Not peaks, smooth valleys. Anyway, so I'm taking a traditional sculpting class, and the instructor John Brown was like, "Okay, you guys got to pose it. So you're gonna take you're gonna take a putty scraper, and you're gonna dig in, and you're gonna cut this clay out. All this clay that you like spent time packing and putting it there. You're now gonna dig that out, and you're gonna bend the armature, and you're gonna move it, and then you got to resculpt it all." And I was like, great. Like I spent way too much time detailing something I literally just started destroying. And I thought it was so funny because I was like, yeah, of course. So it's going to be fine is my point. You could do it. Yeah, I'm actually learning how to do. I'm taking a Gnomon course. John Brown, amazing instructor. Because I wanted to see a couple things. I wanted to see, since I never touched clay until 8 weeks ago. Actually, 9 weeks ago. No, 8 weeks ago. Technically, I touched clay 5 weeks ago because the first 3 classes had nothing to do with clay and everything to do with armature building and what is artistry. It's actually really nice. I consider myself a student for life, even though I teach and I love to create as an artist. I am a student for life. I feel like it's impossible for any one person to learn or know everything, and I feel like we can always benefit from each other. That's just me as an artist in a nutshell. So if anybody asks you, but that being said, I was like, I want to know, does my skills from ZBrush transfer to clay? And here's the reality. Yes, absolutely. My anatomy knowledge, my ability to understand texturing, character design, all of that transfers to clay really well. And the only thing I was really learning, I've been learning, has been what to do with clay. Like, what is that medium like? Now, I did also learn some other elements to it as well, which I thought was really cool. There's some things that were explained a little bit different and a new way to look at something, especially with posing and center lines. So there's always something to learn, and I think it was really cool. So it's been such an amazing time taking a class, because I haven't taken a class myself personally in quite a while. So this was really cool. It's probably the best one. Highly recommend it. You want me to hit Control F? You want to see? You want to see my topology? Here, I'll show you the low res. Here's my low res. It's fine. It's good for 3D printing. Here's my high res. There you go. Yeah, Shift F. Yeah, Shift F does it. I was like, Control F's going to put me in a folder, but I wasn't going to correct that. How to use KnifeCurve with B radius and Polygroup at the same time. Woo! You talking some crazy, and I like it. Okay. Let me turn off my... That's a great question. Let me come through safe. How many here, by the way, while I go to answer this next question, I have a question for you guys. How many of you are actually going to be coming to the ZBrush Summit, and how many are actually going to do the Sculpt Off? How many do we got here? Okay, I'm going to grab a sphere. There we go. Okay. So B radius. And Polygroup. B radius and Polygroup. It's a fantastic question. And the way you want to access that, okay, is by pressing Control and Shift together and then hitting the space bar. That's one way to access that. It's also, I believe that's under the brush menu, as Paul showed at one point. Pretty sure it's under here. Modifiers, I believe. No, actually, I don't know where that's at. That's a great question, Ian. But that's how you can. That's one way to access. We're not going to double down. I'll figure out where that actually lives. But the easiest way is go ahead and press Control Shift and then hit that space bar. I've realized I've never really opened that anywhere else. Okay, so utilizing this can be done on any brush, by the way. So that's something to remember as well. You could do it on any brush, which is fantastic. So now, utilizing this, let's get that KnifeCurve and then come through, and this is what you want KnifeCurve, right? Now the B radius part, so by clicking this, normally the KnifeCurve looks like this, right? And it's rebuilding that surface. Let's Control Z. So now I'm going to turn on B radius, and when I do this cut, notice this thin line. This is something that is actually driven by the focal shift. So if I just press the space bar, or I come up to the top and find this focal shift O, this is actually going to correct the size of this. So if I have a brush like this size, and I'm going to increase this focal shift, I'm going to come in now, let that go, and that's now going to give me that kind of size. So, and I can increase my brush size, of course, which will give me a bigger one, increase my focal, adjust this, and all this stuff. Is it focal? Yeah, it should be focal shift. Yeah, size of focal shift. So you can, is it? Actually, hold on, let me correct myself real fast. Let me double check something. Control Z. Sorry, my brain is fried today. Let's go 0, let's do this. Okay, let's do this. Sorry, let's just drop this size down. I lied to you, sorry. Let's scratch, rewind. Don't worry about focal shift, it's just size of your brush at this point. So, now you have this guy that's driven here, okay? So, now that we have something, this is giving you this area, right? So just focusing on the size of your brush will give you a different result. Control Z, drag this down. Either way, that's gonna come through. Making the opposite cut is with Alt. So if I'm coming through and I wanna make a cut, but I don't want this intersection piece, I want it to be cut out, I press and hold Alt, let go, and that's going to drag that section out. Why this is cool is because then I can drag this out, press and hold Alt, stop here, at that actual intersection, and it's going to cut out the difference between this solid piece and that intersection. So I can make some really cool shapes by just doing that. And here's the fun part. You don't have to do finger Jenga for this. You can press Control Shift, start dragging this out, right? And then I can come through, press and hold Alt, let go, and it's gonna cut through all of that stuff. So this is one way that you can utilize it. Now, in combination with all of that, let's back up for a second. Press and hold Control Shift, and then now turn on Polygroup. That's how you're going to use them together. So if I come through here, right, it's giving me a different polygroup. Let's come back in. So I'm going to cut this section out. I'm going to now come through here, cut this section out, and it should be giving you different polygroups. The interesting thing, though, is that the KnifeCurve brush already gives you new polygroups. So I don't think we're really seeing a difference because it's already kind of doing that already. So even if I were to turn this off, and I use the KnifeCurve brush, let's come back over here, do something like this, right? It's automatically giving me a new polygroup because that's what the KnifeCurve brush does. So in a sense, you already are utilizing that polygroup feature with B radius because of how this brush actually works. It's already utilizing that polygroup. So, but if you wanted to turn it on, again, it's kind of an unnecessary point with this brush, but you are able to utilize this section. Now I just crashed ZBrush because I was an idiot and I just sliced all the way through and did not hit Alt, and now there it goes. So that was my bad. KnifeCurve brush does not like cutting through multiple pieces of geometry at the same time, especially if you don't have clean mesh. So that was me, not ZBrush. Let me open that back up. Nice, nice. Same difference with a knife lasso. Hey, what's up? What's up, Mint? How you doing? Yeah. Yeah, but it's understanding why that happened, and I could tell you that the reason why it happened was because I had all of that mesh, and I tried to cut all the way through, and that brush is designed to cut the mesh super clean and then try to weld that all together. And the reason why it popped was because it's trying to now cut through 3 to 4 different types of mesh, and then it's trying to re-weld everything in its proper place. And the way the knife brush really works well, we drag this out, hit T, hit make Polymesh 3D, is that, you know, if we really look at this, and this is what's really cool, is that come through, look how, like, the stitching, ignore the stitching, but look at the inside. That's super clean topology that is really helpful. The reason why is, again, it had all these floating pieces, and then it was trying to weld everything together. It couldn't detect where the edge stopped and started on each part, and it just said forget it. So everything has its limits, that's why. But again, the way the knife brush works is definitely useful, especially if you're trying to do some sort of like ZBrush and get some nice clean topology, and say ZBrush that. So now I have something that looks super clean. So the knife brush is there to help with that, especially with something like this. Boop. So, good fun stuff. Knowing is half the battle, as they say. Let's go ahead and load my tool back up. Let's see how much work I lost. I think I saved it. I usually save before I go on tangents. Yeah, it does happen there. Thank you, thank you. Actually, that wallpaper was actually, it was collaborated. Actually, I'll move this off to the side for a second. You guys could see it. This is actually collaborated with my colleague Ellie and I for Christmas last year. We actually, she wanted a elf on the shelf type character because she wanted to burn something with pyro. And I said, okay, cool. So I made the character, and then she brought in everything else and then used Pyro and Cinema 4D to burn it down. And then we took a render of it, and I was like, I love this so much. So yeah, I'm glad you guys like it too. It was a lot of fun. Okay, what did I lose? Actually, not too much. Detailing the hands last. Okay, good. I think I saved appropriately, which is awesome. So yay for me saving. So I can't wait to print this guy out. He's gonna be so much fun. Okay, let's come back in. I don't think we're gonna get the 3D printing stuff today, but that's okay. I still wanted to texture them, make them look nice. And oh, so that's the thing. Just a heads up to everybody. I won't be streaming next week because I'm gonna be in Amsterdam. So just heads up. I might be able to stream the week after. Okay, so I'm gonna hit a new one, hit record, and then we're gonna focus on the feet. All right, let's go ahead and just solo this out. Again, where I got these alphas from, and these alphas ship with ZBrush, just come up here to the light box, hitting that comma key, coming up to texture, and then I was utilizing some of these. And I think for the feet, let's double tap that one. And then let's put this over to drag. Yes. Okay, now that's a positive cut, so let's set this as a negative. And then I'm going to mask this off. I'm going to drop this all the way down, soften it just a little bit. So I'm gonna get some nice blending between the two components. And here's the thing, layers work on the subdivision side that you turned it on. So I turned it on at the top one. So I want to be able to add this in. So I'm going to add that guy there. Yeah. Now I need to come here to brush and take my own advice, come over here to auto masking and turn backface on. So this way I don't push through like this. See, that already started. So let's Control Z that. Let's get this back here. Let's adjust the intensity. It's a little too high. There we go. And then I'm dragging in both directions. I'm dragging up for one and down for another to give me just a little bit of variation. No one's ever going to really see this repeated texture unless I make it look obvious. So if I drag up on one, down on the other, and then do like, and I connect the lines, and that's actually also what's happening here. As I drag this out, I notice where the tail end is. So when I come up the other way, I now try to line those up and make that look like a continuous stroke. Once I'm done layering all these components down, then what I get to do is actually come in and enhance those. So that's the next step, is enhancing all of this. And maybe do something like that to come in. add this on this toe here. And some of this will get smoothed down and some of this will get left alone. And it's all about just kind of lining it up and not making it look super obvious. Now this foot is actually going to get... This foot is actually going to be planted. So I'm not worried about texturing underneath so much, just to get enough of that info. So then it looks like it's continuous and it looks natural when I cut into this, what will eventually look more like a rock. I did save, yay! Is it possible in ZBrush to measure size of an object in centimeters, for example? Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great question. Let me finish this one little mind thought, and then I'll showcase that to you. All that really is for you to just pick which measurement, and you can set that up in Scale Master. But here's a little fun fact. ZBrush naturally measures in units, but that unit is typically defaulted by millimeters, typically. But you can change that really, really simply. And then, too, you'd be working in a more realistic, I say more realistic, but you'll be working in more of a scale size. So, for example, let's put that there. Okay, great. So I want to measure in centimeters, or I want to measure in feet. Okay, so the bounding box function, and I'm going to cover that in the same conversation. Let's actually move that, just for my sake, on this side of. Okay, so Scale Master. So the bounding box is really there for you to have an example of how big, wide, and tall something is on your scene. But you don't necessarily need to create the bounding box if you want to have another, like a simple control cube, for example. And what I mean by that, and this is how I work typically, the bounding box is when I'm ready to like measure the overall project. But here, if I wanted to just hit solo and bring in a cube, and I need this cube to be 1 centimeter, then this would become my size, right? So, and I just kind of size this according to what I think is going to be a centimeter in my world. So let's say this is a centimeter in my world, right? So that's fine. So the first thing you need to do is just need to come up to your Scale Master, and you need to just set your scene. You don't need to set your scene for any other reason other than to actually get that actual size. But the reason why we hit set scene first is because you're converting what is being classified as a unit to the measurement of your choice. And as you can see here, we have millimeter, which is typically the default. Then you have centimeter, and then you have inch, and then you have feet. So those are ways to do it. If I hit escape, nothing really happens. Reason why you'd want to do that is, oh man, I want to save before I set my scene. Something like that, which I'm literally just doing now. So now we're going to say set scene scale, and now I'm going to choose centimeter. So now at the very top, it's going to say 0.025 centimeter. Now what I can do is I can say I need this thing to be my 1 centimeter regulation. I'm going to set my whole scene off of this cube that is going to represent 1 centimeter. And then from there, you can come around and say, okay, go back to Scale Master and say that this is 1 centimeter, right? And now that's going to change everything. All my axes right now, my X, Y, and Z are turned on all. So I hit 1, so I have a 1 by 1 by 1. This will become 1 centimeter. Notice the centimeter is now selected, right? So now all I need to do is say resize my subtool and let that go through. If you get this message saying resizing of subtools based on the selected dimension will create X, Y, and Z values larger than 100, resolve this. What this is basically meaning is that the size component, just say yes. All that's really telling you is that the size component of your scene, i.e. if we come down to geometry, and then we go to size, okay, right here, this size component, if I kick this all the way up, usually 100 is where it maxes out. So basically what it told you was, hey, this thing actually had exceeded that value and we needed to reset it. And it's just, okay, that's great. So now at this point, if I come through and I go back and I say set my scene scale, okay, I just messed with that value, by the way, so that was my bad. Let's redo this. Let's redo this. I messed with that value by showing you where that value was coming from. So I'm going to kick this back down, say yes, go ahead, scale this all the way down. And then we'll just repeat that process. So same difference. We're going to come here, we're going to say 1 centimeter, and I want to resize this. So let's set scene scale. Let's say this is going to be my 0.1 centimeter. I need this to be 1 centimeter. And then I'm going to say resize my subtools. Super tiny, that's okay. So everything's going to get adjusted. Let that come through. And let's give it a moment. Looks like he's coming out of the woodworks now. Okay, great. So now at this point, now this got rescaled. So if I say set scene now, it should come up and it should tell you that it's about 1 centimeter. There's 4 decimal places, so it's saying it's 0.995 centimeter. But okay, that's why. Now you can use your transpose line as an actual ruler. So I can hold on, right, to this point, hold shift, and now if I come up here at the top, it says 0.9944 centimeter. It's pretty close. And the transpose line will help snap to certain points, which is what we want. So I can measure from this point to this point, and it's snapping to these points. So now I know from these edge loops, it's actually about 0.4972 centimeters. So that's how you'd be able to set your scene scale on that factor, and then to use the transpose to measure it. And you can set it to millimeters, centimeters, inches, and feet, which are, you know, the most common out of everything else in the world. Nice. Made a tutorial about making Halloween 3D print. Check that out. Nice, dude. Yep. You're saying, sorry to be stuck on this, you're using the knife lasso with B radius, but it won't make polygroup. Interesting. Well, let's find out. Knife lasso. So let's go knife lasso. No, it's making a polygroup. Are you getting this? Is this what you're happening? Where you're coming through? I'm going to divide this up a little bit more. And then I'm going to just delete lower because you can't have subdivisions for this. Are you getting this? Where you're trying to like cut a hole but nothing's happening? If you're getting something like this, 2 things are happening. A, your mesh is hidden. Right? So if you're coming through and you're doing this, wow, even then, cool. Yeah, that's actually giving me, here, hold on 1 second. So if you're getting this, you're not making a full connection, but you can't pop a hole like that through. Like, you can't do that. Like, this won't let you pop a hole through this section. It won't connect that. You need to be able to start that cut outside. Oh, there we go. Interesting. I just had it happen. Oh, you know what? It might be, actually. Let's try this. If it's making this similar polygroup, because it is making polygroups for me, it's possible... Trying to see if I can replicate it, because what it should be doing, no, polygroup, what it could be doing is it may not be looking, there we go, okay, check this out, here we go, that took a while to get back to it. So something like this, where it looks like it's the exact same polygroup, it's a different shade. So this looks like the same. We can all agree, maybe visually right now in the stream, that this looks identical, right? But if I hold Control Shift and tap, it's not. And it's because it's a different hue. It's like the same color. So if you're getting a different polygroup, and this doesn't matter with B radius or not. B radius turned on, B radius turned off. Like, that could be one aspect, but let's now try with B radius. So let's turn B radius on. Nope, same thing. I'm getting different polygroups. So I am getting different polygroups, but when we went back to that other section where it was a different polygroup, it was just a different shade, like literally a different hue. And again, like I mentioned earlier, polygroup with polygroup turn on, it's just going to give you no polygroup, which that's already happening with a knife. So it could be something like that. So if it's happening and it's not giving you a different polygroup where you can't even do what I had done before, if it's not even doing that, then put in a support ticket, because it might be something else. But it should be, because it is for me, and I am on the latest version, 2023.2.2. What version of ZBrush are you on? If you're still in 2022, then make sure you upgrade to 2022.0.8. There was a lot of bug fixes that happened in that last version, and you can do that. So that's still free to everyone who's still in 2022. But if you're in 2023 and you're not using 2023.2.2, I would update. Okay. So try updating if you're capable of updating. If you're on subscription, update for sure. And then worst case scenario, put in a support ticket. You're using it on a flat plane? There it is. Yeah, on a flat plane, it's because there's nothing to connect. So you're using it like this. That's not going to create, because there's not enough information there. A flat plane, it needs thickness, because again, how the knife brush is working is essentially it's cutting the object, and then it is stitching a new stitch to rebuild and close and make that a watertight mesh. And you can't do that on a single-sided geometry. So if you're doing the knife lasso on a single-sided geometry, the knife lasso is not designed for that. That won't work. What you would want to end up using is actually you would actually want to use the slice curve at this point, and you can use the slice curve with the lasso, and that's what you would want to do. That's going to give you the result that you want, because now you can create these custom shapes. And that's because the slice curve is just slicing up the geometry as it is into new segments for you, which does work on a single-sided geometry. But the knife brush itself does not, because it inherently is looking at cutting, deleting, and rebuilding. And that's not what you're doing. You're actually just segmenting. Oh, thanks, Moon. Yeah, good to see you, Kairos. How you doing? So that's what I would do. So even with B radius turned on, no, that's not going to work. I would come here to slice curve, turn it to lasso if you want this free flowing, and do that. Or if you left it on curve, come in, double tap Alt for sharp edges, single Alt for not so sharp edges, and you can do that. You can even, let's go down a rabbit hole. This is always fun. What you can also do is you can actually use ZModeler to cut these custom shapes too. So going way back, and I think I want to say 2021 if I remember right, if I open up the ZModeler brush, right, and I hover over a point, I can actually come through here. Is it a point? Dude, I want to say it's split. Oh, I haven't used this feature in a minute. Give me a second. I want to say it's split. Same here with the face. Split. No, not split. Not split. Hold on, give me a second. Slice mesh. There it is. Yes, slice mesh. So I come here with a face, and then I come in. So slice mesh. So check this out, right? I can actually come through here on the face and on the actual like edge loop, or I can come through even on faces and do custom slices like this. So I can come in and say this section, this section, this section. Now check this out. Now I need these to be different polygroups. So, and maybe this is what you could do too. You can combine these two features. Let's actually give this a shot. So let's go back to the knife lasso and let's do this, and okay. But see, that's not connecting, so this won't work. So now I have this section right here, right? So then what I could do is hover over this, and then I can come over, and if I remember right, I want to say it's Polygroup Fill. Boop, boop. I can come in through selected areas and actually fill in that section because I've caused slicing, and then I can isolate this. This is an older feature, but I really like this feature because again, it just lets me come in. So that's slice mesh. So hover over a point, a blah 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 face, I believe even an edge, there you go. And I can just start coming through and I can just start dragging this out. And it's gonna go kind of like shortest path, right? So I can make all these custom shapes coming through, just click here. I can get really ugly, connect those dots, polygroup, hover over that face, polygroup, fill, and then click and press and hold the Alt, and that's going to give you a new polygroup section as well. I would still use slice curve, it's way faster, but if you're doing custom shapes, maybe it's a flat plane that's wrapping around a face and you want to segment that face out for a piece of armor. That's actually how I approach Darth Grogu. In fact, let's go here as the art example. If you guys don't know, I did Darth Grogu quite a while ago. And if you want to see my art, you can absolutely do that. I'm trying to actually build my own website currently, but here, if I look at Darth Grogu for a second, so this was based off of a concept by Max Davenport, super awesome dude. If I zoom in, baby, zoom in. Can't let me zoom in? Okay, you know what? Here, I'll just download this. Let me do that first. Pull this up. And let's pop this guy over here, because I believe I can zoom in now. So here in his fun little eyeball, you see this section right here? This area actually wraps around his head. And so what I did with that was I just went in and I used that slice curve, or the slice mesh with the Z modeler, and I created a custom shape which went through and helped me get this on his face a little bit quicker. So that is something that you can ultimately do. So that would be a nice fun way. It's a little hard to see if he rotates around one more time. So you can kind of see right in this section here that's going around his head, which I thought was kind of cool. So yeah. Oh, thanks, man. Not enough likes. I appreciate that. Yeah, hard to write on the phone. I totally get it. Let me see. I use Google Translate to see if I can understand some of the questions that come through. I'm English speaking only, but I'll just do detect language. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, please, yeah, hit the like and subscribe and all that stuff, guys. Like, this is the time I usually stream, and it helps us out, so I definitely appreciate you all. Oh, the stream title's wrong. Do you have to start with ZSphere skeleton for game-ready characters? Is that good for rigging, or do I not need it? Okay. So rigging, actually, that's a great question. And actually, we can cover that. Yeah, let's cover that real quick. Great question on that. So you can use it for rigging, absolutely. There are ways to go about doing that. So I didn't do anything to the Velociraptor, and he's not really good for showcasing that right now. So let's do, boom, okay. So you can absolutely use ZSphere for rigging, and actually it's a lot of fun. So what you could do is you can actually come on up to Z plugin, and then you can go to Transpose Master, and then from here you can actually turn on ZSphere rig. And then once you do that, I'm going to turn perspective off, and then once you do that, I'm going to kick over to base mesh. Please select the multiple models. All right, okay, so I actually need another subtool in here. So you can't use Transpose Master with just one subtool, because there's no point in sending it on over. So let's just send another one in, because you have multiple subtools in your stuff, right? So let's just do that. Actually, you know what? Let's do one better. Let's delete that guy. Let's give her some clothes. So let's actually do this real quick. We're gonna drop this to the lowest subdivision level. I'm gonna Control D, duplicate that, and then what I'm gonna do is just delete this. And then let's actually give her some clothes. So I'm going to give her some biker shorts. right? So we'll come in, and you can utilize the mesh for this as well. You don't have to just utilize the mask extract. I like to, especially if, like, let's say you divide a few times. Let's hit solo for a second, and then you actually don't have, just delete that so you have some cleaner topology. So you can come through and say, like, okay, she'll have some biker shorts, right? And then let's give her a little bit of a tank top. Say something like this. Maybe come in, delete that. Okay, sharpen this up, and let's do extract. And then I like to do single-sided geometry, so I'm going to say extract that and call that out. Now we have something like this. And then from here, what I'm going to do is actually just hide this, and we're going to do a quick split hidden. So I'm going to go up to split under subtool, split hidden. So now I'm just working with the shirt by itself, right? And then I'm just going to quickly ZBrush this. So before I do that though, so a little quick tangent on utilizing extracting is that I soften that mask up a little bit and I clean these edges up. It's masked, so what I can do is go to deformation, and then I can just polish this. Get that a little bit cleaner. That's one way you can do it. You can also just polish by features, and that'll help kind of clean that in. Polish by features is probably a better approach. Once you have that there, I'm just going to go to geometry. I'm going to go to ZRemesher. My secret sauce, little is what makes it tasty and yummy. I'm going to come here, keep groups down to 0 with smooth. So keep groups, smooth groups down to 0. Adaptive size down to 0. I'm going to go ahead and just ZRemesh that, and then half this. And then the reason why I do this is that I get really nice clean topology really quickly. Have some decent poles. That's a little too low res, so this will work out perfect. And we'll do the exact same thing here, just because we can, just to give it a little bit of variety, right? So polish by features, maybe blur that mesh just a little bit, give me a nice clean edge. Same thing, secret sauce, right? I'm gonna go here, keep groups, smooth groups down to 0, adaptive to 0, but I keep that on. That keeps the groups or the polygons relatively the same size. And I'm gonna just do this a couple times. Say something like that. And if you ever see something like this, you're like, this needs to be a pole. This does not need to be this crazy triangle here. That's okay, easy fix. All I really need to do is come in here and say, you know what? This point right here, I need to stitch this. So I'm going to stitch this with this, and then just do a little bit of a smooth, and that cleans that up real quick, fast, and in a hurry. That's totally fine. Pull back there, that's fine. Give it a new polygroup. So now I have some different clothing. Right? And then I want to make this clothing a little bit different, so I'm just going to flail that up just a little bit. And how I did that was actually just hold control, hover over the scaling, and then that does like a center inflate almost. All right, now we have clothing. Perfect. Now we can come through here, and let's actually rig this. So I'm going to come in, say Z plugin, T-pose mesh, turn on ZSphere rig. And as soon as I do that, it's going to give me a silhouette of this guy right here. We don't need the floor on. Now from here, you have Q to draw out new points. You have, W for moving, E for scaling, and then R for rotating, okay? And Control Z will kick me back to the center point. Okay, so now what I can do is I can come through here and say, you know what? I'm gonna turn on symmetry, and I'm just going to put this somewhere kind of in the middle. I like to start at the waist, typically. That's about where I like to start. And then Q to draw, so I'm gonna go ahead and draw. I could press and hold shift to snap to a similar size. And then I can scale this down, say something like that. And then what I like to do as well is you can actually, a little cheat, little shortcut, is you can turn on ghost here. And then what I can do is I can actually, from this point, I can draw. So I'm gonna move here, I'm gonna draw to this point, then I'm gonna draw to this point. So you can actually click here, then drag this out, and then scale this down. And what that does is kind of snaps it to the surface. So then I can actually now just position this internally. So this is a fast way to come through. Drag this out. Say W, just moving this around. So I'm just literally clicking W to move and then D to draw, and then you can do this whole element. Hit W, select the thing you want to actually work off of, and then same thing, go back to draw, and I can snap this to this point, to this point, to this point, and etc. And this is a really quick way to draw that out. Hit W, select this one. You want to pick the point in which you're drawing from, and then come back, hit move, because then that's how you're actually going to drag this stuff up. So you could say something like that. And then you just position this. You just move this in to where it makes sense, right? So this might be the next section. This might be the overall head. I'm going to push this in, and then just get this situated where it makes sense. And then if Ghost needs to be back on for you, you can make your adjustments this way. So this will help you with this section right here. So yeah, so this is the starting point of getting it. Now let's say we're happy with this. This is one of those things where you want to take your time. You'll notice in this test here, I may actually would want to help generate some sort of rib cage. So maybe I'll kick something like this, because the Z-spheres are going to help protect the mesh. So sometimes I might do something like, let me create a little bit of a rib cage to help protect this area a little bit more, especially when it starts deforming. And you'll see what I mean soon. So you can do something like that. It's only as extreme as you want. You could also delete Z-spheres by on draw mode, holding Alt and clicking, and then that will delete those sections as well. So those are things that you can also do. All right, now let's say that we're super happy with everything. Okay, from here at this point, you absolutely can now come through and go to rigging, and you can bind this mesh. And once you bind this mesh, now what you could do is you press move, click something, and now you can actually end up starting to move this around. Now, if your topology is really, really high, it's going to be a little bit sluggish. If your topology is really low, then it won't be. Okay, at any point in time, you can unbind your mesh. And that's how you can come through. You can even come through. Let's say we're happy with this. So I'm gonna kick this. Let's bind this mesh real fast. Boom, perfect. Maybe come through, click this guy. I'm gonna just kind of move this around. Now this is not a super clean, but you get the kind of idea of it. And then from here, right, I can come in and send this back, and then it will start moving it. Now, I didn't do such a clean mesh, so I did get a little bit of warbling, but again, take your time, have your mesh low res enough, and you can use these spheres for rigging. That's actually that's an older method too. And now you can actually combine with proxy mesh as well, which is another way to go about doing it. Yeah, absolutely. And this is really good too. If you guys are going to be working with a base mesh when the ZBrush Sculpt Off, and you want to pose quickly, and you can build that fast, you're comfortable with building that fast, then absolutely go through all that. How many maps could you have for a character? It depends on the character and what you're going for. You can have as many as you need. I know that's a generic answer, but that's pretty much it. Unless the team is dictating, like you only can have 100 maps. That's it. No more than that, then you have a limit based on what the team can do. But a character can have as many maps as necessary. You just want to focus on combining things that make sense. Like on my weapons, I typically, like if I was going to make something for a game engine, then I typically try to anything that's steel would be on one mesh, anything that's leather would be on another map, etc., etc. Just trying to keep it clean. Let's see. They used to tell me not to use it in school, but now I'm using it a lot lately. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only downside of Z-spheres, just to be honest with it, is that you can't just export that Z-sphere into an animation as far as I'm aware of. At least I've never done it that way. So I don't think that's a process you could do, but if you need to pose your character, Z-sphere rates are very, very, very useful. It's either that or you do the mask out method, which I typically do a lot of. But there's also, and a little shout out to some workshops coming up, but we've been working with Relution, and they have a rigging tool that a lot of us have been utilizing and just testing because they made a ZBrush posing plugin, and so that actually connects to their CC4 character creator 4 in that rigging set. So that's another way too. So that tool specifically is used with a plugin they made that we support. So then we can connect and you can get your ZBrush models into Character Creator 4 and back. So that's another way too. So if you end up doing a lot of pose or rigging, then that also would be beneficial. So there's a couple approaches. Awesome. What time is it? Okay, cool. Let's go back to the Velociraptor. Great questions, by the way, guys. Seriously, everyone here is rocking in. All right, let's come back to this guy. Let's turn on my transparency. And so we have this cube here. I don't need this cube. I'm not working in scale. So I'm just gonna delete that. And let's go back to this guy. So he's gonna be for 3D printing. And so now we gotta, I wanna see where we are. Let's actually get let's get this rock. Let's get this rocky. That was the worst joke ever, so let's never say that again and pretend we didn't. Okay, so let's actually come here. I'm gonna see what kind of brushes I have. Some of my favorite brushes for rocks, the orbed brushes are pretty cool, and I think I have those orbed brushes. Yeah, rock noise, rock detail. I love these brushes for rocks. These are some of my favorite sculpting brushes when it comes to this stuff. So, get something like this. And let's actually boost the intensity. And am I working on a layer? Let's go to layers. No. Okay, cool. Let's actually do this too. Let's come in. Let's do load brush. And then I want to do some, so there's rock detail, that's the one I did. Let's do rock noise. Cool. Let's do some of these. Cool. So between these two, and then we're just going to enhance them. We're just going to enhance just a little bit. So what's cool about this is I like to kind of push this in a little bit, and then we'll make some changes. Hey, I'm good. You're a Max user. A long time I used GoZ to send my models to Max. From ZBrush to Max again. Now I cannot find it anymore. Is the plugin discontinued? You mean with GoZ? The GoZ plugin? No, it shouldn't be discontinued. All you would need to do is... Well, let me reframe that. The GoZ, as far as our functionality, has not changed. So if it's not working and you need to remap that, you can do that a couple ways. So you can come here to Preferences, go to GoZ, and then you can actually come through here and do like a forced reinstall. And then like that's Cinema 4D, just select that one. 3D Studios Max. So I have Max here, it recognizes it, and then I would just say, yeah, that's the one. And then it would say, oh, look, it's not installed. Go ahead and install that. So you'd install it on our side. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And then come through and do everything else. Yeah, Maya's there. If you want to skip it, just skip it. No big deal. Photoshop, you know, like all this stuff is there. Like, so now I have Max there. And then if you wanted to change that, like if you're doing the GoZ, and let's say the last thing you GoZ'd was actually to Cinema 4D, and now you want to send it back to Max, you'd have to just hit the R button and then say, look, yo, send it to Studio Max. And then that should connect it from there and then go in. But if it's not working where you can't send it to Max, it's probably something on Max's side, not ZBrush's side. So yeah. It's actually a little bit bigger than a pebble, and it's because it's the base to this guy. Great question. Boom. So Shift S, gonna stamp that over there. Actually, let's clear that. Let's pick him. I like having him highlighted just a little bit. boom, come back, select this. Great question. Yep, absolutely. Oh, thanks. How am I doing? I'm doing really well. Thank you for asking. I am getting ready to, I'm getting ready to stream, not stream, I'm getting ready to go to Amsterdam for IBC. So if any of you are going to be at IBC, definitely let me know. That will be a lot of fun to actually connect with you. So if you're going to be there, stop by, say hi. That's always a good jazz. But yeah. All right, let's get some of this rock detailing. Now, I'm just kind of slapping this rock detail on. There's no real rhyme or reason to this because I'm going to be also kind of like carving into this a little bit. So maybe I want to enhance some of this, so I'm going to come in. Maybe come through here. I don't like that. I also don't have a whole lot of resolution. Is this DynaMesh? This is DynaMesh. So let's do this. Let's come over here to geometry. Let's come to DynaMesh, and it says resolution 128, so let's go 256, and then just rebuild that. Give me a little bit of a denser thing. Nice. I'll also sometimes use the clay buildup. Maybe carve in a little bit. Maybe put a little bit of a hole here, and then maybe trim dynamic or H polish. Those are always good ones as well. That's a little heavy. That's a little hard. I'm a fan of the first Jurassic Park, so that's where I'm pulling the reference of it. I'm also not the scientist, so I'm going to sculpt the thing that I want to sculpt. But you know, sure, feathers. That is a thing that has now been updated, which is pretty cool. And it's really nothing against science. I just literally like the first iteration, so therefore I'm sculpting the first iteration. It's really just the choice. But thank you. You overwrote your move brush accidentally. Can you restore it? Yes, you absolutely should be able to restore it. This is a personal project. So if you accidentally overwrote your brush in here, go to reset all brushes and try that and see if that works. Unless, hold on. Let me ask you this. When you say you accidentally overwrote it, did you mean like you did this thing where you're like, let's grab let's say this guy, and then you created a brush, and then you were like create insert, and then you said append, and then you did that. Reset might do that. If you went into all of the brushes and like you saved over a brush that has been saved, so it's constantly calling that one, might need a reinstall if reset doesn't work. You could also try, because that's the thing, like, so the way these brushes are stored, if I come in here and I just come through doop, let me find it real fast before I show my screen. So if I come in and I go to program files, and then I go into the Maxon or Pixelogic folder, whichever one I'm in, and then you got your Z startup, and then from there, blah, 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 and you overwrote one of these, this is what it's going to pull from. So if you overwrote one of these that's inside of it, then you probably should you probably need to reinstall at that point. I can't think of it if the reset doesn't work. But if it was just inside here and you stored it, and then you were like, oh, I lost the brush because I overwrote that brush, just hit reset and that should work for you. I could play the scientist for sure. Sure, I mean, you know, Ian was a character in the first Jurassic Park, so absolutely, I love it. Anyway, to answer your question further about what's this for, so this is honestly just for, ooh, that's loud. This is honestly just for a personal project. I am just making an old school Velociraptor for 3D printing, and I'm also going to be covering the print process. Like once I get this established the way I want, I'll be covering the print process for IBC, how to go from ZBrush to 3D print. So, and for me, I just wanted to sculpt a old school Jurassic Park style character, but not a copy of anything specifically. So that's what this is for. You lost the icon because you used selected brush at the main menu. Okay, if you lost the icon, then you should be able to just reset all. You can also change the icon up here by going to brush and then selection. You did that, so now my clay buildup has this. And if I go reset all brushes, boop. And I go back to my clay buildup, it goes back. Yes, me like dinosaur, absolutely. 1000%, you nailed it. You'll be traveling to LA for the summit? Dude, nice, man, nice. We'll be anywhere. Will there be anywhere you recommended with decent internet to stream Sculpt Off? Also, popular geos and channels and brushes are allowed. So any brushes, so let me answer the first question. Any brushes that are not IMM brushes or VDM brushes that are custom. So let me back up. Any sculpting brush, meaning it does not have, it's not adding geometry. Like Shaynol's fill brush does not add geometry. Pablo Munoz's brushes that are just a sculpting brush. Those brushes are allowed. It's the brushes, it's the custom VDM, it's the custom IMM, because those are the ones that are actually adding in geometry. Now, you can, in the 3 hours, create your own custom VDM or IMM that you build within inside of ZBrush, but not pulling from outside sources. You have to build it from scratch within ZBrush. Then that is allowed. So there are components in which are allowed, but you cannot. But you can't go grab, you can't go grab MLW Creative's VDM scale brush and then use that. That's not allowed because that scale brush is a VDM and that VDM adds geometry. It's to level the playing field. So any VDM or IMM brush that ships with ZBrush, you are 100% allowed to use. And furthermore, you can turn any one of these brushes into some sort of like curve brush or not. So if you come up here to the light box and go to brush, you also have like 200 brushes up here to really play with. And again, like you have some curve brushes, patterns, stitches, etc. So you can turn any one of these default brushes that ship with ZBrush and use that as IMM or VDM or however you want to create. You just cannot use anything outside of that. But like these orbed crack brushes, for example, we've allowed those before in the past because those orbed crack brushes actually they're just sculpting brushes. They don't actually add geometry. You still have to use them and create the thing you have to create. And that's the component in which you have to remember. So if it's adding geometry, you cannot use it unless it ships with ZBrush. It's just that simple. Yeah, and then the second part is anywhere you recommend with decent internet for the stream Sculpt Off. Unfortunately, there's not like I don't think there's like a internet cafe or something like that. So I would say maybe your hotel would be the best bet. I don't know. I mean, there's a buddy of mine that wanted to compete in the Sculpt Off, and he's flying in from Florida. And I just told him, I was like, maybe do the Sculpt Off, then fly in for the next day, because the Sculpt Off is all online and there's no in-person event that day. So that could be something that you do as well. But if your tickets are already booked, I would say, I don't know. I would look at what kind of hotspot you could do during that time as well, and have a computer that can handle it. So it's hard to say. Yeah, I don't really have a solution for you. Sorry. You started printing on your own 3D printer. Small victory for me. Printed a bobblehead. Yes. Nice. Dude. Or a blob head. Sorry. Dude, but still, awesome, man. That's great. Dude, you got to get in there and start printing, man. 3D printing is so much fun. It's super fun. All right, we have a few minutes today left, and then that'll be it for today's stream. All I'm doing is just kind of roughing in some shapes. I'm more looking at the silhouette of this and just kind of seeing if there's some cool stuff I can do. I also kind of want to dig in some holes, so I'm going to use the KnifeCurve. I'm going to come through here, maybe come in and cut some chunks out. What I love about rocks is they're organic. And they're just kind of random little bits of, it's like wherever water flew or gouged in a little bit. So you get to kind of just like, I like to just play and sketch until I get something that I like. I'm not really trying to copy a certain rock. What do I spend annually on resin? Oh, dude. You know, it's a great question. I'm probably too scared to figure that out, but I've already spent a couple $100 on resin in the last couple months, so a lot. Because I also don't post everything I print, but yeah. Actually, that reminds me, I need to order more resin. Thank you for reminding me. I have to order more resin. All good, makes sense. Thank you for the insight and for the qualified brush. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. I'm going to turn on polish and re-DynaMesh this and see what a simpler version of this works like. And I'm going to not cut that direction. I'm going to cut that. No, not like that. And let's do this. I'm going to use, okay, this is where the chisel brush kind of comes into play a little bit, and I dig this. Also, there are some really cool techniques with this brush we could use if we want to like kind of gouge in here. But let's see. I also, maybe we could try some thick skin. Let's go 4. Let's try that. Now it's a little too thin, so let's do a little bit more. Say 30. Let's get something small. Okay, and then I'm actually going to go with something a little bit more like this. I'm going to try DynaMesh on that and just see if that works the way I want that to. That could be kind of cool. Okay, that could be kind of cool. So let's actually increase this, and then what I want to do, I'm going to go to brush. I'm going to modify this chisel brush a little bit. So I'm going to affect the modifier. No, not the modifier. Where are we? Tablet pressure. And I'm going to go to my, do I want my size or my intensity? My intensity. Intensity is pretty hard up there. Say something like that. So maybe I'm going to kick this down. Maybe drop this and give me a little bit more of a curve. A little bit more of a fall off. Yeah, that's a little bit better. So maybe not as intense. Maybe drop this down a little bit more. Maybe do this size a little bit too. Okay. A little light on that. Maybe push this up. Okay. Just gives me a little bit of variation. I'm going to adjust the intensity down because it's pretty high. Okay. It's a little low. Okay. Just a little bit of just a slight subtle difference. Not really going too nuts with that. I'm also going to adjust some of that intensity, the focal shift a little bit. I don't need mRGB on this. There we go. Just want to make some gouges. And you know, I don't think I need thick skin for this. It's not benefiting me in any way. I'm gonna get a little bit of a difference here. Because then when I come through and do like a polish, it's gonna give me an interesting effect. Nice. What is the best way to learn fast anatomy? I will sculpt full skeleton and muscles. Is that helps to remember and start full body exercises enough? Dude, that's a great question. Okay, so I'm gonna preface this with the way I view anatomy is anatomy in and itself is a lot to take in, but there are amazing books that would really help you get there fast and understand the basic shapes quickly. Before I tell you those books, though, if you need to reference anatomy at all in any way, shape, or form, you could do so straight in ZBrush. And that is, you can actually come here and you can open up the lightbox. So hit the comma key, hit the lightbox, come to Tool, and there's this Ryan Kingsley écrochet. And what's cool about this écrochet, what makes this écrochet so special, is the fact is that it comes with a skeleton. Now this is a female skeleton, but it comes with a skeleton. And then every name that is here is actually named. So trapezius, right? And then what you could do is turn off solo and turn on your frame, your poly frame. And look, so I got my trapezius that's there, pectoralis, whereas that's right there, perfect. So you can come through and start looking at all the different names. And as I scrub down, right, I have all of the names here and where that body part actually is on that person. So having the polyframe turned on means I can come through and I can get the names of of each one, right? There's my tricep right there. And if you're like me and you butcher names, these actually might be good. They actually be good to attempt, you know. Semi-main yeah, okay, I'm terrible with names, but you get the idea. You know, I actually need to learn some of these names too. I was somebody who's never really learned the names as much as I just learned the general shapes. But anyway, you can get super technical and get the proper names. That's within ZBrush, right? Then from there, books like Anatomy for Sculptor, that's a huge reference. Anatomy for Sculptor is a great reference. A lot of artists will actually use that book because they'll actually show you the primitive shapes and how they achieve those shapes really effectively and easily. And because you're a sculptor, you don't really need to know some of these muscles that are like deep down inside. Like if I were to come in here, like that's the skeleton. But if I were to come in this muscle in particular, all right, the adductor longus, this muscle is buried. That's underneath. So if you're doing an écrochet, that's an important muscle to know. But this muscle doesn't actually do anything for you as a sculptor because it's underneath other muscle and other fat pads. So you may not need to know that one right away, but the general shape, because that doesn't break the silhouette, right? That's where really I'm going with this. This doesn't break the silhouette. So if it doesn't break the silhouette, then you're not really going to need to know it right away. It doesn't hurt to know it though. Don't get me wrong, I'm trying to learn my anatomy, names and other elements and go deeper with it myself. But in the meantime, coming through and just figuring out the main muscles, the main fat pads that affect the silhouette, the shape, that is a really great way to start. So Anatomy for Sculptors is another one. And then Bridgman. Bridgman is a 2D artist. A lot of his works talk about the outline and the importance of the said outline, aka the silhouette, and how that silhouette breaks on a character. And if you ever want to know what's really being affected, those different points, you know, if we come back up to, let's say Let's come up to, Julie never gets used a lot. Let's call, hey Julie, how's it going? So we're gonna turn off the color and come through here. What you'll notice is, right, if I were to change the color back, yeah, she's faceted a little bit, but even if I smooth her out and then switch color, you'll notice here that if I were to just say, like, you could see that this line in itself, right, this straight line, that's identifying that shoulder element. This area right here, this straight line comes down, and then it pivots off. Now it breaks off into the tricep area, but that's a short line. You come down here and then this line. So you see how important that outline is, and Bridgman is an artist that actually does it with just straight lines and not a lot of curves. And that will help you identify where the apexes are, like the widest part of the body. You'll actually start lining up other elements, like for example, the relationship between the hips and the armpits of an individual, or more importantly, if we were to come down here and stuff like that, notice here that how the hips are, and notice how the calves are, right? And you'll notice too in those sections that, you know, I've seen calves that get like pushed really far out, so you never want the calves to be wider than this hip area. And on a woman too, the widest point of her hip usually is right around this region in the growing region, right? So those are areas that you want to actually start to identify, and Bridgman really, really helps with that. So that's another really great book to encompass in your journey. So I would say all of that is going to help you out. Hello from Brazil. How you doing? How you doing? Is there a better way to polish a sculpture and keep it straight without losing detail? Yes, actually there absolutely is, and I could show you on Julie real quick. If you're needing to clean up a sculpture, i.e. like you're trying to clean up the silhouette, and let's say we have like some details here. So let's actually come in here. Let's bring up a standard brush. Let's get maybe this side here just as a show and tell. And let's actually, so subdivision is your best friend. So you kick up your subdivisions pretty high. Then I can add this detail. Where are we at? What did it say? Oh, layer. Okay, got a layer gone. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and just create a new layer because I have a layer on. So if I come through here and I have all this detail on this area, let's just bake all that. Okay, that's baked. Now when I step down, that information, that detail on her arm, that's actually information on the highest subdivision level. So if I needed to increase, like, let's say her shoulder size in some of this area, and I needed to kind of like bulk her out a little bit or straighten it up, clean it up, boom, I go to the low resolution, I do all that, then when I step back, that detail is still there. The detail is only going to stretch as far as the topology allows, so of course you want to make sure that you don't stretch too crazy. But even still, when I step through, notice it's trying to preserve that detail as much as possible. So this is where subdivisions are your best friend, and that's the best way to retain high-level details, but still be able to manipulate and move the mesh around, polish and clean it up. And then, of course, too, we have our basic polish brushes. If you wanted to sculptural polish some stuff, so I needed to come in and actually polish this area here, you know, and actually refine that shape, come through. Then you have the polish or trim dynamic brushes. But I believe that's kind of more what you were looking for. So when I'm new to ZBrush, I'm learning to use brushes to make fabric wrinkles. I downloaded some images, but when I load them into my standard brush as alpha, the image doesn't repeat correctly. It's like it overlaps too much. How do I adjust the overlap, the scale correctly? Okay, so alphas are going to, you're new to ZBrush. I don't know how new you are to alphas though, but alphas has that grayscale value. So if there's too much light variance in the alpha itself, that's going to cause some conflict. But what you can do is, let's say you are texturing like I've been doing on this dinosaur, but we're just using Julie now for the last couple minutes. So I'm coming through and I want to actually like add a texture here, but I don't want this to overlap, which is I believe what you're asking. Then what you can do is you can actually draw this area out, and then under masking you actually have mask by change points, which is masked by change points. Give me a second right here. So you have masked by change points. And what that'll do is that's going to mask out this area where this alpha is. Okay. So it's kind of a little hard to see. Let me actually divide up a couple more times, get some high res. That was probably too much. Let's back it up. Cool. So I'm going to drag this out here. I have this area. Now I want to mask those change points, and that's going to mask this area. So now as I start going through, that mask is now going to protect those change points. And so I'm able to actually draw this out on those areas. And then when I get to this spot here, right, it's overwriting this section, but it's not here. So again, mask by change points. I can even come through, turn off this little bubble, which will give me a different algorithm. So if I clear this mask, maybe drag this one out, then say mask by change points, now it's protecting that whole section, in which then I can soften this up and then start blending that in to each other, and now that area is protected. So while you're alpha stacking, mask by change points is definitely your best friend for that. Oh, like seams? So with seams, then focal shift. So check this out. With seams, if I turn focal shift down, this alpha does not have a seam. Let me see if I can find one that does. This is actually a pretty nice alpha. Okay, here. There we go. Here's one with a seam. Here's one with a seam. So I have this seam right here. So this actually can be controlled by your focal shift. So focal shift -100. Draw this out. It's dragging this out. That's giving me that nice sharp, that harsh sharp edge. Focal shift down to 2 or even 1. Now what that's doing is that focal shift is blending that out. So, and you could see it here. If you look at my brush, the center ring is actually where the starting of that stroke is going to be. And the closer to the center that is, the softer something is going to be. So that focal shift is going to help you kind of mix and match and blend those areas in. And then in combination with the mask by change points can help you also correct that. And then you can start cleaning that up. You see, I cannot read the seam alpha very well because the seam alpha along the path is repeated many times, a little space using the dots of the option brush. Well, let me know if that helps you out on that. And then yes, so there are also other alpha. You can always adjust and change your alpha. You can modify it. You can come through here and you can adjust the blur of an alpha, how soft something could be. You could adjust so much here. Got modify and create. What are the different options in here? Yeah, so under modify, you can come through here and make it have surface details mode, which again, that's just going to help you do stuff. You can adjust the strength of it, the intensity, the streaking level, like so much. You could play with a lot of this stuff, how much noise gets interjected. So you can see here just the difference between these two strokes. This was without any adjustment. This is with adjustment. So, you know, I don't want any of that noise strength coming in. That's a lot softer. Maybe adjust the blur here. That's going to come in. But again, the way you adjust this, -15, that's going to make it go in the opposite way. So yeah, there's other options to do that. The easiest approach is that if you're custom making alphas, make the alpha have some sort of softness to it. That's why I really love these type of alphas, where there is no harsh line. It's nice and soft, and it's really focused in on that area. You can modify these too by putting them into like Photoshop or something and painting true black on where you don't want it to be and fade it out, and that can help you, because true black in ZBrush is invisible, and invisible means it's transparent, so you can't see it. So therefore, like this scar brush, the scar alpha that I have that I was using in this example, it's pure black and then just the white, and it gradients out real nice and soft. So I'm able to come in and actually add some of that detail well. But once I started adjusting it or modifying it, that made some changes. So yeah, there's a lot of options. But this, something to note is that if you come up here into alpha, now notice here, look how noisy and stuff this is. If you come into alpha and you start messing with this is global, this is overall. So you'll want to actually kind of make sure that what you adjust you like, or put it back when you're done. So if I adjust the noise, now the noise is gone. So those are elements you can do. but it starts with the alpha. So it just depends. Cool. That's going to be it for the day, guys. But yes, absolutely great questions as a whole. Let me do a quick roundup real fast, quick and in a hurry. And then you mentioned something about roll distance and stuff like that. If you have a brush that supports roll distance, you could also use roll distance, but that's not going to affect the outer edges of it. That's just going to repeat that alpha across the plane in the direction that you want. So if you come in and you modify and you do your roll, and you're doing your roll distance here, right, then that's just going to affect that alpha, whatever that alpha looks like. It's going to stamp that. So that's not going to affect the softness. That's where the focal shift is going to be your best friend for that edges and the seams. Yeah. No worries, no worries. Yeah, that's your problem. So I have many repetitions on the path. So if you have many repetitions on the path, then you could just adjust that distance between the two. It's a rabbit hole. It's a rabbit hole for sure. So yeah, just go to stroke and then just adjust this. But this is just going to be the spacing of each one. I've really just muddled this all up though. But all right, guys, that's going to be it for the day. Great questions. Hopefully that was helpful. Definitely kick in there, play with it. A lot of it is going to be trial by fire too, so don't be afraid to pop in and play. Absolutely. And just real quick, fast and in a hurry, guys, just so you know, ZBrush Summit, we've been talking about it. It's here. There's a lot of fun workshops. Workshops are selling out. So if you were going to be here in person, check out these workshops. They're super amazing. In fact, I'm just going to throw the links into the channel right here. And then, of course, too, who is presenting? You're going to want to see who's presenting because we have some people who have not even been here before popping in. Capcom Street Fighter is going to be just same. And then, of course, Sculpt Off rules. Definitely check all that good stuff out. It's going to be awesome. So please compete. Love to see you there in the summit. Again, that's September 28th through October 1st. That all being said, I'll catch you guys later. Thank you for showing up, and I'll see you probably the week after next because I'll be in IBC. And if you're there, come say hi. All right, I'll catch you guys later. Bye, 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 bye.